Hi, my name's Lindy and welcome to my channel. My website is www.lindycowling.co.uk and my email is info@lindycowling.co.uk. So I hope everybody watching this is doing well. Love, courage and strength to you if you are in isolation somewhere in the world watching this because of the pandemic, or if you are on lockdown in some capacity, and if you have relatives that are unwell, or you're just afraid that you might catch it. So love and thoughts and prayers with you if you're watching this. So the title of this video today is Timeline Reality, or Timeline Reality, is yours affected or infected? Now, again, I might slightly tweak that title because I didn't plan it before I came out on here. And so it's just going to come flowing straight from the heart. So I might tweak the title a bit, but it's along the lines of the timelines are yours, or are they globally affected or infected by the current situation or the current pandemic. So if you want to look at my perspective and views on the current situation, a couple of videos back I did one called Going Viral Transmission, and I speak at length about things there. But what I will say is this is the situation we have at the moment. This is something that we're moving through really for a number of weeks, really getting into months, and it's something that we are going to move through and come through the other side of. And actually the original malevolent plan behind it was that humanity wouldn't move through it particularly well, and it would be much more prevalent and catastrophic than it is or will be if it hasn't arrived in your country. So the good news is it won't be as bad as was planned. When I say planned, I absolutely feel without any hesitation, I'll say I do strongly feel it was and is and has been released intentionally and was coded, and you could say weaponized for want of a better word, so all done intentionally. But it won't actually have the overall effect that was intended because too many people have made that transition into the heart. Over 60% of people have chosen on a soul or spirit essence level to go that route, which meant that as we entered 2020, the mass pattern, if you like, for humanity consciousness was to go into that creationary grid of consciousness alongside and in harmony and tandem with the earth, rather than the programmed linear reactionary grid of consciousness, which has been malevolently programmed and been here for a very long time. So the pandemic really was created from that reactionary survival grid. But because so many people have transitioned or are going to transition en route to, and nothing will stop it, into their heart portal and basically ascend within their human body, they're on that journey. The creationary grid is the one that will win out, because it's an internal thing. It's one's own inner grid. So that is going to see people through. So the positives of this will be that people align with those, let's say, higher perspectives within themselves, those more pure perspectives within themselves of compassion and kindness and love and joy and creation and community and wanting to help other people and act of service. These are all the higher qualities that come out. Now, when you look around you, you would probably not always be witnessing that at the moment. Where I live, in a particular part of the United Kingdom, it's known as a holiday area. I'm only about 15 minutes off the coast, one of the coastlines, and masses of the United Kingdom population have decided to defy the very strong government advice to staying in their own areas and staying at home, and of all, because the schools have shut, decided to use it as an extended holiday and either travelled down to caravans or hired caravans or booked holiday homes or got second homes in these areas, so that they can bring their virus, which is on them or in them, unbeknown to them or known to them, en masse down to areas of the country like this, eats the food that has largely, I'm going to say largely run out. There are certain things that are in ready supply and others that aren't. So they're using the food that isn't in their area, in a holiday area like this, and they're also using the medical system, which was already under strain. So you will see the utmost unbelievable selfishness in people at times like this as well, where they will just think of themselves. And you will see this, you know, where they're clearing out the supermarkets and medical workers that have been working all night can't get any food because people have been stockpiling it and hoarding it. So that is the downside of a time like this. And the upside of it is seeing wonderful community things come together, people trying to help each other, people being kind to one another, you know, almost like a bartering, doing things for free, or trading, a trade-off, trying to help one another and support one another in these kind of times. So when I talk about the survival response, you would say to me, is the survival response then the reactionary grid that is all about survival and linear and like power and ego? It doesn't mean to say that all people responding that way are entirely immersed inside themselves in a reactionary knee-jerk survival grid, the old energy, because that survival mechanism can be triggered in any of us. If people of this feeling that, you know, things are going to get very difficult, or people are frightened about something, it's an instinct, hence the word survival instinct, that makes people react in a way that is perhaps not, you know, normal for them, where they would just suddenly go onto this really instinctual response of needing to get things prepared. So it doesn't necessarily mean when people act that way that they're not on the path to the heart, but generally speaking, those that have made that transition within themselves aren't going to be diving into really extreme measures of hoarding and survival tactics. That they might be a little bit triggered and feel like, oh, it's common sense to do this, that and the other, but not to the extreme that we've been seeing it. So this creationary and reactionary grid, the reactionary grid is aligned with the old world timeline, if you like, and the old survival linear timelines also for ourselves. So the grid work that is in, signed, sealed, delivered, cannot be undone, that is now here, which is wonderful, the creationary grid, which is active within many people, really are keeping people guided onto the higher aspects of the process and what the higher aspects of what's happening, the bigger picture, and the creationary aspects of it, and amazing things will come out of that process over the following months, in alignment to triggering people into an old reactionary grid, the old energy. You could say to me, who would deliberately want to trigger people into an old timeline or an old belief system or an old reactionary grid, and that would be the same malevolent entities that are behind many or pretty much all of the governments of the world, the ones that have the true agenda to orchestrate many control, almost slave-like systems of humanity, and to keep humanity where they want them. So there is that ultimate agenda, the same people that were behind releasing the pandemic in the first place, which won't do what they released it to do. Nowhere near will it do that. So that is why, because you can control the masses, you know, if you get them into a state of fear and into a position where, you know, they can't actually see the truth, and they can't see the truth within themselves, and they don't have the perception to look outside the bigger picture. So that old timeline, there is the old, I'm going to say the old global timeline, is to yank us into fear, survival and power responses. The old survival timeline is to make sure you stay disempowered, and actually for the energies and entities, the malevolent ones that aren't from this planet but they control the people on the planet at the top, work with them. What the plan is there is to try and get as many people to stay within that reactionary knee-jerk survival grid, so that new laws can be brought in and kept in all over the world that enhance even more control for that malevolent timeline, and so to take away more and more freedom from people. That's the ultimate agenda, and to keep them really down where they want them to be, which is really like we're seen as little ants, really, or you know, sheep, really. Whereas the higher timeline, the creationary grid, the heart, the ascension process that's going on in thousands upon thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people all over the world, tipping into what will be millions, because it's all unfolding as we speak, ascending and going into the heart as a gradual process. That creationary grid is really much the self-empowerment, understanding who you are, your perception of the world and reality completely changing, the true reality coming to light, the truth of what things are and what's behind it and who's behind it, creating one's reality from the heart, from that space of love and joy and community and service. All of these wonderful things are the higher elements of it. And when enough people, which we have enough people now, because this journey started in the 1990s really, once enough people are holding that predominant, what we call resting state frequency, it helps, as you know, the masses, if you like, to tip over into it as well, which we have now going on. So what that does is literally create a higher reality for the whole earth, really, which is already here and landed. That's unfolding, can't be stopped. It's unfolding as we speak. So the creationary one is you literally can create your reality alongside the earth, in tandem and harmony with the earth as you go. In the reactionary grid, the old energy grid, shall we say, that grid really is pushing not only to get people under the thumb, but also to dominate and get people fixed on survival. Where is my next meal coming from? Will I survive the pandemic? All these kind of things that are deliberately being triggered. Although, like I say, the pandemic is a real thing. It is a real threat. It is here. But it won't be as damaging overall as people think. Yes, thousands will die in each country, thousands upon thousand. But they wanted million upon million, so it'll be better than that. This old reactionary grid The ultimate agenda is for artificial timeline, artificial intelligence, and the artificial aspects to be running the show and one's reality, with the ultimate goal to one handing over one's own human consciousness for the machine to take it over. Yes, it sounds like something out of the Terminator films and out of sci-fi, but that is the reality, and it's been a long-term agenda. And there are many fantastic speakers that have been alluding to this and speaking about this for about between 20 and 30 years, that are very wonderful, legit people. So we have the Earth timelines, and we are on the overall picture of the highest of those Earth timelines, that we still remain overall humanity on the highest of Earth's timelines even as we speak, and that cannot be changed. But what has been released deliberately, that is trying to yank as many people possible back into a reactionary grid, which you will only catch so many fish, so many people in that net. The rest of them are already on this road now to the heart. And that reactionary grid is also there because the ultimate aim is to push an artificial state of consciousness. So we have an old saying in England, I don't know if you have it elsewhere, that you know, when a rat is cornered, it is at its most dangerous. So what I would say is there are a lot of rats in a lot of corners over the transition that is happening with humanity into the heart, and because that is fait accompli and cannot be stopped globally at this point, people will be ascending in the human body over the years that come. It's starting to happen now. It will unfold over a period of years, and that cannot be stopped at this point. Can some damage be done along the way by this reactionary grid and those that control it? Yes. They can make a smooth path take a little bit longer and be a little bit more bumpy. Can it really change when someone in their heart has already chosen within their soul and essence, energy and consciousness they are aligning, and actually the perception is changing within them of the reality they want? No, they can't derail them. What they're really trying to pick off is those that hadn't decided yet, or are leaning more into survival, ego, power, all for oneself, narcissism, psychopathy, you know, psychopaths, all these kind of thing, wanting the world that way, money, 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 you know, all the rest of it. I mean, in order, the positives, again, another positive coming out of this, although it is a very difficult when we transfer over from one grid to the other internally and it manifests externally. But the amazing things, again, another amazing thing coming out of this is for the old to become real, tangible, physically here, just like I said in my videos at the end of last year, 2020, the year of finality. I kept saying this shit is about to get real. There's going to be shock after shock, and many thousands would transition and pass over, etc. And you can just look back at those videos to check that out. Just like with anything, when there is a point where there is a choice between turning left or turning right. Do I lean into this or do I lean into that? I'm not talking temporarily, because everybody has moments when they might be leaning one way or the other. I mean, let's say permanently, in inverted commas, you know, the road on a soul and essence level you've agreed to take, or that you came here and signed up for. There will be, like I say, still many changes to come. There will be still many changes to come. Not just this. People perceive this as being a main one and the big one, but actually it's a one of them. And I'm not saying they're all going to come this year, but it's going to be a consecutive thing. It won't just be this to create these changes. So when we need the old to come down, or an old monetary system or the truth behind the monetary system, for example, when these things need to be illuminated and highlighted, then, you know, things like this come up. And yes, it is big for a lot of people. It's just like something you'd see in a movie. A lot of people feel like they're in a movie. But this is the times we are living in. You know, you can't all do it all conceptually, and anything that takes place internally, switching over to a different grid of your own consciousness, a higher aspect of your consciousness, it's going to show up in your little world, your micro world, but it will eventually, if enough people make that decision, show up globally in the macro, in the big world, and it has, and it will continue to do so. So there are masses of positives coming out of this. You know, there will be vast awakening. It will speed people's wakening up. Yes, like all speed bumps for humanity, and, you know, like I would say the way I explain this is, look, we are flows of consciousness, streams of consciousness. The pandemic thing is a boulder been put in the water that is our stream of consciousness. But it doesn't stop the stream of consciousness. It's just the stream of consciousness that is us just diverts around the boulder and carries on. So all it's done is plonked a boulder in the middle of the stream of consciousness, but we're diverting around it. All the positives, again, you know, the energies that are part of our own consciousness, but also helping us, let's say the benevolent starseed energies are helping en masse, and everybody knew this time would come. It's not as if something has gone wrong and suddenly something unexpected has happened here. We knew there would be a sequence of things coming, and actually we've known this for 20 to 25 years, and expected it to come before now. It had been delayed somewhat. So it's not as if anything's gone wrong. It's that we are moving through a massive transition of energy, you know, people leaving the planet, passing over to another dimension, people ascending in the human body, people waking up. It is an extraordinary period of time, which for some people will be extremely challenging and very sad, and involve a lot of change there. And for many others, the stress of the financial thing and the loss of jobs and the loss of freedom and isolation, and even the change of some of those laws are going to bring about some consequences. But there are too many people on planet Earth now that have made the decision not to live in an artificial intelligence dystopian timeline, a reactionary program timeline, malevolently programmed outside of the human race, and too many billions that have decided that is not for them. And a human being, just one human being, standing in their sovereignty, in their sovereign power, in their heart, is massive. They're like a little mini nuclear bomb. So you can imagine million upon million, let alone billions, that have decided they wish to create the earth and reality they wish to live in. Their perception has changed. They realise that they are co-creators with the earth and co-creator with God, source, the universe, whatever your belief system there. You can imagine the amazing, really true power and sovereignty and mastery that lies with that. So these are the points that we are now at, and these are the things that people are now realising, and there will be a lot of change and things that fall away along the way. And it really is a question of people helping one another. Those of you that are on that path into the heart, that can see more than the 90-degree view, that the reactionary grid, those not on that path yet or haven't started on it yet or won't be taking that path, can't see. It's kind of your role really to hold that space and that balance, and, you know, really focus on anything that you can do to help one another there if you can, and to just focus on, you know, sitting in that space in your truth and doing the best that you can for you and kind of those around you. It is an extraordinary time. And as much as there are challenges in it, there will be amazing things coming out of this as well. And again, you know, not just for humanity, but the earth. This creationary grid is totally interwoven with the earth, the consciousness of the earth on which we inhabit, a consciousness of itself, the earth, and all the different layers and dimensions that exist on earth apart from humanity. Also, I bring into that, you know, the creatures and the animals that live on the earth, and how amazing it is to see that in just a few changes in human behaviour because of this pandemic, how the pollution has changed a little bit, or the environment has changed a bit, and how nature immediately moves in. Whether it's the dolphins and sea life that's suddenly been seen in Vienna because, you know, the mass population and tourism and boats aren't out there. You know, we're going to see it all over, you know, where nature, you know, it once it sees that space, it will move in, you know, it will naturally bring things into balance. Just as planet Earth is aligned 100% with the higher outcome for her Earth, and we are aligned with the higher outcome for Earth, but also the higher outcome within us. You know, we really are being called upon, like Earth, to kind of come into as much balance as we can within ourselves. If you are in isolation or lockdown, a question of really not panicking within that, knowing that this is temporary, this too shall pass, shall we say. You know, using that time to create something and perhaps communicate in ways that you've just distracted yourself from. Maybe forging new bonds and new links, knowing that you are never alone or abandoned truly, and that source and that beautiful pure energy is there within your heart and has always been there. And in this quietness, perhaps you'll get to feel that and notice that for the first time, and perhaps creating something new or connecting with new people. Like I say, there will be extraordinary things that come out of this, and there will surprisingly be many more good things that eventually come out of it than the awful suffering and pain that we are witnessing at the moment in a lot of countries. I mean, particularly in Italy. My heart goes out to Italy in love and prayers. I mean, such a beautiful country, such beautiful people, and really going through it at the moment. But again, we will pass through this, all of us. I'm talking about all of humanity, regardless of your country or culture. We will pass through this because we were always meant to pass through whatever other challenges came our way on the timeline. It won't be the only boulder that gets dropped on our timeline, but this is a big one, and we're streams of consciousness that just divert around it. So try to be sensible, try to be as balanced as you can, try to be kind, and try not to panic too much, and just keep coming back to center, and know again that this time will pass. It's not the end of the world, it's not Armageddon, it's not any of those things. Don't buy into it. Don't let yourself fall into that black hole there. Don't go back onto the reactionary grid. Sit yourself down, deep breathing. If you can't get out into nature because you're isolated or on lockdown, you can take your mind to a place that's in nature. You can meditate on nature, you can look at pictures, you can listen to CDs, you can watch something that's about nature. Okay, it's second best to being in it, but it's still a big second best, because the body and your energy responds the same. You know, feel yourself, sense yourself holding a tree. Even if you're not allowed out, you can use your imagination to imagine you're holding a tree, or sitting by a tree, or laying on the grass, or swimming in the sea, or sitting by a river. And you can even play sounds, you know, that match that up, like bird song. And after you've done that for 10 or 20 minutes, you will actually feel like you've been out there. So, you know, I hope that's put you in the picture of the bigger picture of the kind of Earth timelines. If you ask me how that affects your own individual timelines, really this hasn't affected them that much. It's a boulder in the stream of consciousness. Yeah, it might have, in linear terms, slowed things down a bit. You might have just been out about to start a new job, just about to got married, just about to move home, and now it looks like it's all on hold for a number of months. But it's not going to ultimately deter you from where you were going. In terms of our understanding of time on Earth, which is very different to how it really is, it will slow things down a little bit, but it won't stop your ultimate destiny. And no one or nothing has the power to do that. And on that note, I will love you and leave you. As always, look after yourselves, stay as balanced as you can, take care, know that this time will pass, it's going to be all right, and I will see you again very soon. Bye guys, bye.